What is up, everybody? Lindy Endzone is in for the touchdown, taking the lead for the Philadelphia Eagles, one video at a time. And with this, I got a special video presentation for y'all, and this is a little bit different. Obviously, we are not live. We are not live for this. And I didn't want to exhaust I just didn't want to exhaust, streams and whatnot to what's going on the day before the NFL draft. But I got a special presentation for y'all. We're just going to call it food for thought on the final day. And I got some fellow content creators to help me out on this one, talk about not only the Eagles, but for ECG to my right, the East Coast Gridiron podcast supporting the Jacksonville Jaguars. Coach Dante in the building for not just the Eagles, but the Houston Texans. And my man below me, Vic 3, part of the East meets West with the good fellas in AK Eagles, Philly Foothills. Gio, hope you get out of the hospital soon, my man. Bless up to y'all. So day before the draft, fellas, and as with what we're seeing with the Eagles right now, smoke screen after smoke screen, it seems the same. It seems that we're seeing the same thing from 2020 and them trying to go into a similar type of strategy. And for us knowing Howie Roseman as long as we had, this news isn't new to us. He's known to do this. It's part of his track record and whatnot. But how are you guys feeling the day before? And, is there any confidence that the Eagles can go 2 for 2 in really success? I guess we can call 2020 partially a successful draft. I know that you have to wait quite a few years to see how these guys get, evaluated eventually, how they pan out in their responsibility to their skill position. And but how are you guys feeling going into tomorrow?
Man,
I didn't direct it. That's my
uh,
fault. I
oh
didn't
no,
direct anybody, but I guess we'll go from the top down. But ECG, you can take it away, man.
um, I mean, yeah, I'm a Jaguars fan, but everybody knows here, man. I'm a football fan in general. Anything football, I try to have the most educated opinion in the room, or at least try to give people the direction on what to look at. But
Hmm.
before the draft, man, I mean, this is one of those drafts, and I've been saying that. I said it once, I'll say it again. It's not like last year where we had what people consider was a lot of guaranteed superstars that were going in. This is really one of those times where it's like, we think Kyle Hamilton's generational, we think Derek Stingley's generational, we think, Aiden Hutchinson might be good, well, in some people's eyes, but there's no clear indication on any of these players are going to be good at the next level. More so when we're looking at the Georgia Bulldogs front seven. All those guys are in the draft right now. You have Lewis Sign, who is the best DB on that team. He's in this draft as well. How do we know that any of those guys are going to be really good? Was it just a really good team where they all played well together? Who's the clear superstar? And I
Hmm.
said it, if the Jaguars choose Trayvon Walker number one, that dude had the greatest combine in NFL history. I'm just call it like it is. But that's kind of, I'm just looking. I know that between picks 5 and 7 are going to be exciting because we're not going to know what the Giants are going to do. We're not going to know what Carolina always surprises us every year. Um, but I'm not really sure if anybody's going to trade. I think everybody's in a good position to pick up the player that they need. To be completely honest, when you look down the board, like you can literally go from who's the top player like on PFF or any of these drafting websites, and you can literally just go Aiden Hutchinson to the Jaguars. The next person goes to the to the Lions. The next person, and it all fits. Everybody, you can make an argument for every single player going to the team from that top 32. But I'm just looking for to see what the teams are actually going to do. I know it's kind of like looking at college basketball season when it's in the in the tournament. Who knows who who knows who's going to win, And who knows what team or what player is going to break everybody's mock drafts. So that's going to be the fun part tomorrow, is figuring out who is the closest, and and the reasoning behind why some of these analysts think that some of these players are going places. So I mean, I know all of us are going to be pretty much all live on our respective channels. I know Vic's going to be over with us, but yeah, it should be fun, man. I'm just looking for an exciting time. It's not an exciting draft. Nobody's sexy in this draft, but as far as football standards go, but I'm just looking for some excitement on a draft of really no guarantees.
Yeah, I mean, it feels pretty, it feels pretty strong across the board. Like there doesn't feel to be like a top heaviness to it. As you were saying, teams could very well end up staying in their spots, especially with the Eagles having two first round picks. I mean, they depending on BPA and who's left after those first 14, there's going to be a lot of availability, especially when you consider who the Eagles have spent their top 30 visits on. And yeah, you had that college basketball reference, and I, I couldn't tell you how ecstatic I felt when the Tar Heels got as far as they did go UNC for me. And I think what's his name? Who we I forget the player's name that just committed today. That's supposed to be like a 5-star recruit, but he just came to the Tar Heels. So, man, I'm winning on all different kinds of levels right now. But yeah, no, nonetheless, when you think of the amount of teams that are looking to move up, and speculated, and it was reported today that Dallas is desperately trying to move into the top 10. Isn't every NFC East team by now. So there's no shortage of competition, but yeah, I mean, like you said, it doesn't feel like there's it doesn't feel like there's a sexy selection here or a transcended type of player. Although these guys have a lot of elite type of potential to them. You just don't know what is going to happen at the end of the day, especially those teams that are in need of a quarterback more immediately than having to wait another year down the road when you got a stronger quarterback class. And the Malik Willis's, the Kenny Pickett's, and the Eagles spent the top 30 visits on Matt Corral. That's supposed to go day 2, but I guess we'll find out to this point. And I mean, as for the Jacksonville Jaguars, again, that dynamic is kind of back where the Eagles have watched Doug Peterson over the years when he was the head coach for us, and again, he seems to have that same kind of mold between head coach and quarterback, and he has another big armed guy with him in Trevor Lawrence, so to carry this along a little bit quicker, and what you've seen so far in the Jaguars offseason with what they've done to bolster offensively and defensively, where do you ultimately think they're going to prioritize more between both sides of the ball, and what do they ultimately need to do to help out Trevor Lawrence and between the quarterback, and how confident you feel Doug Peterson is going to use his wisdom to elevate this football team?
First of all, you're gonna want to have to draft a player that's gonna want to come to Jacksonville. You don't want another
Yeah.
Allen Robinson situation where he knew out of Penn State I didn't want to go to Jacksonville, but then he gave it everything he had for us too. So I really can't complain. But I hope these interviews that they've been doing with the select few players that they have, they're starting to figure out like who's really wants to come and play football here under a Super Bowl winning coach, first of all, and is going to come in and buy into the new system that Doug Peterson's trying to bring. The offseason for us, I mean, I gave it like a 7.5. Like I said, you got to spend a lot of the money for some of these big players to come. I mean, regardless of how you slice it, I hate the fact that we gave Christian Kirk like what was it, the 4th or 5th highest contract for a wide receiver. But you got to pay the money to
Ooh.
bring the man in, and it just is what it is. So we're kind of in a great situation where we're picking first in the first round, first in the second round. So what you really need to do is make sure that the player that you're bringing in is the right player in both of these rounds. The first two rounds for the Jacksonville Jaguars this season is either going to make us 8-9 or 9-8. Like, and I think the century mark for the Jaguars themselves is if Doug Peterson gets a 9-win season next year, everything that we've done to this point has been a success. And if especially if we have a lot of close games, playing like Coach Dante's Texans and things like that. If we have close games against these teams, it's going to be really scary for the AFC South in general, and we're going to be one of those teams that you should fear. I've always been one to say I'm not a big fan of Trevor Lawrence, never have been, and I think that if it was me, if I was saying if I was in the seat of the GM and Doug Peterson's like, here's my scheme, I think first of all, you draft Kayvon Thibodeau. Kayvon Thibodeau with the first pick. Not only would that would crack everybody's boards like right away, but you don't bring Aiden Hutchinson in who is not athletic and is not going to mend well with Josh Allen. Because what you're going to end up having is you have a DN who switches from left to right side all the time. And I'm not necessarily sure that Aiden Hutchinson can do that and confuse the defensive lines. I mean, how crazy would it be if you bring Kayvon Thibodeau who does that with Josh Allen? They have two completely different skill sets, so your left and right tackles are going to have a freaking nightmare with those two. Trying to scheme around. I'm like, oh, dang, Josh is lining up on my side. But Kayvon was doing all this crazy stuff. Now I got to deal with Josh again. So I think the mixture of having him on the team would be, very good. Also, I think you go in the second round and you choose somebody that's going to challenge Trevor Lawrence. I've been telling everybody on every single podcast that I've been on, your skill position rooms need to be very important. You go to the NFL, the teams that do well in their respective positions is because their position rooms are really deep. You bring in Matt Corral, if he's still there for the Jacksonville Jaguars, he will fight tooth and nail to be the starter, but also will put pressure on Trevor Lawrence to do well. And Doug Peterson's not beside himself to let go of Trevor's ego and say, hey, we need somebody here that's going to challenge you as well. I'm not saying that he's going to be our guy, but any competition is good competition. That's why you have Android versus Apple, McDonald's versus Burger King, Advanced Auto Parts versus O'Reilly. Like, you need somebody there to tell you, like, hey, I'm on your butt, man. So if you slip up, just know I'm about to step in your place. I want another Russell Wilson type of situation, and I've been on record by saying I think Matt Corral is the best quarterback I've scouted since Andrew Luck. Hot take, I know, but I just think he is. But I think that's what we do. And if we do something, very similar to that, I will be ecstatic through the moon for our future. I would think Doug in the front office are doing the right thing for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And also, I think Jaguars fans in general, what they're going to have to do is just take a step back and understand that you're a fan. The guys are there to be the experts. I think Doug Peterson's going to trust in his GM and bulk to do the right thing. And he's already put pieces around on that team where he felt like there was, some spots. Do I wish he would have still let go of Miles Jack? Hell no. And every sense of the imagination, I hated the fact that guy left. But then I'm happy for Miles because he went to a great team. I wish nothing but success in his career because the Steelers are going to utilize him and extend his career more than any other team out there that he would have went to. So, we've been known to do that. Bring in talent, just let him go. So Josh Allen is really like the only guy left. And I love DJ Chark also, and he's going to be on the Lions, and he's probably going to die in Detroit. His career's going to die, not him actually die, but his career's going to die up there, and it's going to be a shame. But I think if we do that, man, I'll definitely be happy, and that would shake up everybody's mock drafts right away too. Which I'll be like, the evil guy in the background, with his fingers together, talking about, dang, we done destroyed everybody's mock draft. Sorry, guys. So
to you, if you had to give an initial immediate grade on what you feel would be successful for the Jaguars overall, what would you have to say? B or higher? A? What's the expectation there?
If we draft those two?
Like overall, based on how the board falls with the totality of your picks.
I think it's an A+ if we do that. To be completely honest, because we don't. I mean, if you really peel the layers back, could we use another offensive guard or something now that Andrew Norwell is gone? Possibly. You can find guards all over the place too. They're not the most important offensive lineman on the field. And this class in particular is very deep with a lot of guards as well that are probably going to get chosen later. So I'm not really concerned that in the third round we might be able to pick somebody up. But then again, on the other side of that, there's not really. I mean, cornerbacks are kind of weak, safeties are kind of weak, and I think you could pick those guys. Like, I'd be very happy in the third round if they picked up Kobe Bryant from Cincinnati. I've been on record that dude was an award winner as a cornerback, taking the 70% of the time that Sauce Gardner was lined up against somebody. He was only on them like 20 or 30% of the time. He was not following their number one guy. People need to go back and watch. Kobe Bryant was that guy, man. I don't care that Sauce Gardner didn't give up a touchdown last year. Yeah, it's kind of easy just locking up one receiver for one quarter and then letting your boy, take the scraps for the rest of the game. I mean, if we pick him up too, I think like this. If I'm really thinking 1, 2, and 3, you pick Kayvon up, you bring in Matt Corral, you pick in Kobe Bryant. And those 3 picks right there alone, if you're talking about plugging the gaps on your team, you've already have 3 guys that can mold the future of the Jacksonville Jaguars for years to come. I think that's what you do as the Jaguars. I'll give them an A+ grade all day. But I mean, that's what's so interesting about the draft. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm not around these players every day. I don't know who showed up to, these little mini camps that they're having that weren't mandatory and just like knocking it out the park. I don't know how these people's off season is going. Shaquille Griffin might come in and be the best cornerback in the league this year. He sucked the last year, but he might come out and just be like, I'm about to turn a new leaf and, I'm sorry, coach, but lock Brandon Cooks up. Like,
Yeah.
who knows what's going to happen. So, but I think you do those 3 things, man, and that's a home run. It's not going to, Jaguars fans are not probably going to be happy with that, but that's what you do. You build towards your need, and you build towards bringing those rooms that have strength in them. You build them up even further. You have a lot of veteran guys there. I'm all about competition, so that's just me. And none of us here are GMs anyways. So, but just from taking a step back, if I'm, everybody calls me the couch quarterback on our show. If I had to put my couch quarterback hat on, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and in the means of simplicity, it's right there. It's right there on the table. You're looking to the draft not as an immediate. It's not intended to be a not so much an immediate fix or a temporary fix. You're building over the course of from that class forward. And it's about strengthening as many skill positions as you possibly can. So you have to imagine, and based on your opinion, you can't sit here and say that there's going to be a lot of Jaguars fans that are going to be disappointed with that kind of approach, especially when you're going across the board. Well, we're doing this offensively, we're doing this defensively, and they can offer us a lot more than what we currently have. And not to mention that you have some sort of sense of competence in a Super Bowl winning head coach in Doug Peterson. So that's going to aid in some of the attraction to a market like Jacksonville, to where, maybe they got something going on here. We've seen what Doug has done before, and, maybe that's when the attraction starts to grow, and especially keeping some of these prospects that you're wanting to bring in happy. So, I mean, yeah, that's fair across the board. Mm-hmm. And, it made a lot of sense when you brought up the Aiden Hutchinson to, Kayvon Thibodeau, contrast between the two, because it wasn't much of a comparison. You were more on the contrast than the comparison. And, well, I mean, you don't want to make the offensive coordinator's job simpler. You want to make it harder in terms of your capability as an overall unit. And when you're when you're simply rushing the quarterback. You don't want a pair of guys that have the same strengths and weaknesses, because you can't build anything there. Would it be easier to coach them up? Sure, but there's a lack of diversity when you take it into account. So
Your
either
goal
way,
as a
yeah, that's
coordinator and a coach is to make the most confusing play calls for the
absolutely,
opposite
yeah.
side of the ball. When you're not,
Yeah.
and that was my criticism of the Eagles. It's like you can blame a lot on Jalen, but you got to blame a lot on the offensive coordinator and Nick Sirianni for having him under center 25 times when the league average was about 85 times last year. That's not showing any kind of versatility. I don't care what type of offensive scheme that you're running. If you trust an RPO, that's one thing. If you trust in your shotgun plays, that's another. But when you're under center, you're telling people like, hey, if you got a halfback, in the backfield, you guys might run it. You guys might do play action. There's all kinds of stuff. Like, you have to confuse the opposite side of the ball as a coordinator. That is the best feather in your cap that you can have, is like, and having players that can, when you're able just to mirror or, reverse the mirror on, the left and right side of the ball with Josh Allen and Kayvon Thibodeau, and then the next play, then they flip flop, and then Josh stays there for 3 more plays, and then you flip back to Kayvon Thibodeau. As a left tackle, that's tiring.
Mm-hmm.
Not even Joe Thomas could deal with that. He even said that himself. The worst competition I ever been against is the guys that, lined up against me that weren't playing on the same side the whole time. It just, you're not going to see left tackles and right tackles flipping. So, but you will see left ends and right ends switching all the time, man. It just is what it is.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, if you guys have made it this far in the presentation, appreciate you guys sticking around. I know videos aren't supposed to go this length of time unless it's a detailed film room or whoever else wants to make this kind of length of a video. I know I have in the past. I think I did a couple of film rooms on the Dallas Mavericks when I was still covering them last season, just before the playoffs, trying to justify the use of Porzingis. And while I gave him more chances, and he didn't help me out. Needless to say, he didn't help me out, and well, the team's better without him. But thank you to everybody that's still sticking around for the video. Being that we're 20 minutes in, between Vic and I, we're gonna have a lot to say about the Eagles. It's kind of a two to one here, since we got 3 teams to go over the day before the big day of the NFL season for 2022 in that so exciting draft. Coach Dante, for your Houston Texans, the biggest domino fell in the departure of Deshaun Watson, now being a Cleveland Brown, and they're still trying to decipher the future of Baker Mayfield. And while that's not the here nor there, you guys have a new quarterback under center that you guys seem to be going with for the time being in Davis Mills. So much like I have asked the other Dante next to me, since there's 2 of you in here, and I refer to him as ECG for the just to diminish confusion. But much like asking him, your Houston Texans are in kind of a similar position in where they are going forward. So what are you expecting to see, or hoping that Houston does come tomorrow?
Again, between cornerback and offensive line, it's been came out and said, but the biggest key is, did Nick Caserio and Lovie Smith have faith in Titus Howard? Because if you have faith in Titus Howard, we got Larry Tunsil on the at tackle, I believe. His job is secured. He's good. He's fine. He walks in day one. He's fine. But Titus Howard is the main key. Whether if we draft Evan Neal or Aquanu, he's the main key. I think Aquanu will kind of make more sense for us a little bit in that spot right there. But Titus Howard is the key. If we don't draft the offensive lineman, if we do go cornerback, which it will be Darryl Stingley, because they like Darryl Stingley more than Sauce. It will be Darryl Stingley. If it goes cornerback, that means they're gonna see what Titus Howard got. We went, I believe, 3 straight years drafting a tackle before we got Laramie Tunsil. We went 3 straight years of that. And I think it all depends on if they really have faith in Titus Howard. If they're gonna draft a Quan, if they do draft a Quanu, then I can expect them to pick up his option a little bit and go with a Quanu. That means Titus Howard will basically be moving on. They would definitely go with a Quanu, but right now, I would definitely, if I'm the Texans, I wouldn't be upset if we go with a Quanu because we need all kind of team needs anyway. We need to keep Davis Mills upright. He showed some potential last year of what he could be, what type of quarterback he can be. Second best rookie quarterback last year, passer rating of a 67. That's pretty solid. But most of those, was kind of against the Chargers. And then you go back and look at the Rams game. They was kind of in the middle when we were getting blown out. He was able to complete some passes, but he did start off that game 13 of 13. So he has some promise. He have a little bit of upside. He stayed in the pocket a little bit better last year from the first half of the season when Tyrell Taylor got hurt. So Davis Mills' rookie year was pretty solid. Up and there. We don't have a running game.
I called it, Coach.
Yep. I thank people for that because I didn't know much about Davis Mills coming out of Stanford. So people like you, JDW even called it that Davis Mills was going to be good, and he was solid last year. He was better. He was solid. He held up his own.
At Stanford was incredible. People need to go back and watch this second half of the season there, man. I was like, dang, this kind of looks like Andrew Luck.
And did he end up with the highest completion rating out of all rookie quarterbacks?
Out of all rookie quarterbacks, he ended up as the highest completion percentage out of all rookie quarterbacks. He was the second best rookie all year. Having Justin Fields out there, Matt Jones for half of the year was the best rookie quarterback, but him a late round pick having that type of season, that's showing that he got some upside. He was able to stay in the pocket. He have a good connection with Nico Collins. You have a good connection with Brevin Jordan. We was able to run the ball late in the season with Rick Burkhead, but it's clear we need more running backs. We did get Marlon Mack, but we're going to definitely get another running back in the draft. I still think we need to get another receiver. We signed most of our guys back. Desmond King, who came on late last year for Desmond King. I think he was the best player in our secondary last year. For Justin Reed, who had issues with the organization, issues with Coach David Culley, that led to his departure going with the Kansas City Chiefs. Terrence Mitchell, I'm glad he's gone. He stunk all year last year. He got beat up all year last year. He sucks as a Texan last year. So we definitely going to shore up that corner spot. We definitely do need a safety. But I like the fight that they had last year. I like I kind of like the progression at the end of the season. We was able to compete with teams like San Francisco. We was able to knock the Chargers about the playoffs. We was able to pretty much knock them out the playoffs. But I think it's a lot of good things going forward. And Nick Caserio has done a solid job of trying to clean up the mess that Bill O'Brien made. And Pep Hamilton is promoted to offensive coordinator. And Lovie Smith he will not have a defensive coordinator. He will be the defensive coordinator of this team. So a lot of Lovie Smith, he loves defense. So I expect us to go heavily defense in the draft for the most part, but I'm looking at the key is the third overall pick. Whether they trust Titus Howard or not. If they draft a Quanu is going to be the starter from day one, and Titus Howard is going to have his option picked up. If we don't draft the Quanu or offensive lineman, if we do go Stingley, then that means they're giving Titus Howard an opportunity on that other side to protect Davis Mills. But I like our future. I like our willingness to compete. And I can't wait till tomorrow night.
Yeah, I tell you what, and after hearing a lot of that, you have to you can't feel any disappointment in what Davis Mills was able to do for Houston, especially when you look at the situation that they had, off the field and trying to go through all that with Deshaun Watson, and then on the field, they're trying to think of what, their next step life without him. And for what Davis was able to do with, you call it a spade with what little, to an extent, that he had that's a pretty darn good intangible to build off of. Especially when you have that kind of quarterback under center, it just instills a lot of confidence in the organization that you're looking at this kid and like, well, you know what? I think we have something here. He has shown that he can do, like, not to a grade of Tom Brady of doing more with less, but it's of the same concept. It's of the same definition, and transitioning to the Eagles, that's what we're somewhat looking for in Jalen Hurts. Now, intangibly, he seems like he's off the charts, Vic, for what we know and what we have witnessed this past season, and of course, what ECG has alluded to in his disliking of what Nick Sirianni did not do in terms of supporting his quarterback with the proper play calling and putting him in positions to succeed. And while we still have the necessary confidence in him, there's still the issues with him as a quarterback that he needs to clean up. And we're already early into this offseason, we're already seeing it. Him posting IG on working out with AJ Brown, getting Eagles fans all excited that maybe they're going to go after AJ if they don't get the guy that they want in the draft. AJ Brown, Tyrann Mathieu, and all these smoke screens that Howie Roseman has been doing up to this point. But for the longest, we have heard from this organization that they're pretty darn confident in Jalen Hurts, and they are excited. To see what he is capable of going forward. To this point, in your opinion, and I know it's just before the draft, but are you in a state of being sold on what guys like Sirianni and Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie are saying about Hurts, or do you think that they're still throwing a curveball with spending a top 30 visit on Matt Corral?
Well, I think in respect to this year, they're saying the company line. They're towing that line.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying what they need to. Same thing they did, last offseason after the news of a Watson possible discussion and trade. They're saying that Jalen's the guy. They stand behind him. All the right things. You have to understand with Howie and with Jeffrey, Sirianni, he's just going to be the guy that follows along. You can't really trust what they say because, again, they'll say something one moment and it's acting something different, the next. So I think for this year with Matt Corral, it's the same situation where Sirianni talked about earlier in the season. When he met with Gardner Minshew when he was coming out the draft, it's a quarterback that sometimes they want to pick their brains. They want to see that, maybe they won't be a first-round pick. Maybe they will. Maybe later on in their career when they're available, that's someone that they already have knowledge about and they can pick up. So I think that's one of the reasons why they have visits with quarterbacks, like as you explained with Matt Corral. It's just pick his brain, see what kind of kid he is, what kind of person he is. If in the future he becomes available, maybe that's something to take a look at. Maybe they just wanted to pick his brain to see what the offense that they were running in Ole Miss. Maybe they just wanted to, see where he's at. You never know. The option, just like Dante said, you got to have competition. The option is always open. But I think in reference to Jalen Hurts, I think he earned the right to be the starter next year. Now, we all know that we made that move with the Saints. We have a first-round pick next year. And everyone's saying it's a backup plan, just in case if Jalen Hurts doesn't work out. And that very well may be the case. Yeah. But I think for this year, they're focused on Jalen, and they're going to try to do as much as they can to get weapons around him because they were trying to do that earlier this offseason. They were trying to get Calvin Ridley. They were in the play for other receivers. It was either, due to suspension, money, the price is a little too high. The Eagles didn't want to commit to some players again because the money and the cost it would to bring them here. That's another thing you got to look at. A lot of these top receivers that are out there this year, they're not really looking at. They're all pretty much being run by the same agent who just wants to get their deals in. So all that speculation of Deebo being traded, yeah, it's being talked about, but how serious is it? Is it just an agent who just wants to get his players, who also represents A.J. Brown, to get his payday? That very well could be when you look at all the player he's representing. So I can't take, that into so much because the Eagles tried. Like I said, they tried this offseason. They tried to surround him with weapons. We'll see what they do in the draft. That's what's going to be important. Will they get him a receiver in this draft? Will they surround him? Will they get him a running back? Will they get him a tight end? We don't know. Will they focus on the offensive line? Because we know the past 2 seasons, that was our issue. We've had many injuries on the offensive line. We're filling guys in. So what are the Eagles going to do to surround Jalen Hurts with what he needs to succeed? And just like Dante said too, you got to think about the coach. Sirianni has a lot to play with this too, because they're both growing together. They're both in their second year together. Can Sirianni open up the playbook enough for Jalen and understand in the game the calls to make, the adjustments to make in the game? Well, it remains to be seen. So for Jalen, like let's call it all off. I think they have all the confidence in the world from him for this year. It's sad to say, but again, that's every GM. Let's be honest. Not every GM has a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers. So if you don't have that caliber of quarterback, you always have a backup plan.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's a synchronized evolution going on right now, or attempted evolution, between the head coach and the quarterback, who just had his first year as a full-time starter in the 2021 season. And when you look at it through that lens, it's there was kind of a obvious expectation, in the reasoning to seeing those low record numbers that we were like, people are painting this team to go 4-13 or be under 500 to a degree, when they managed to actually be over 500. Now, was that to the blessing of a weak second half of the season schedule? That very may all be true, but we still seen progress from both the head coach and the quarterback, and understanding that from the head quarterback, I was about to say, but from the head coach's perspective, he understood that in the beginning what he was doing wasn't working, and he had to adapt to the strength of his skill positions. And while we were asking time and time again that, man, you got to start running the football more. These offensive linemen aren't getting paid to pass protect the whole game and let Jalen Hurts sit in the pocket. You got to get these guys active. You got to get the defense thinking a little bit, so they're actually on their toes, to allow you to make plays down the field and produce some kind of threat, not just in the passing game, which wasn't working for a long time, but the running game as well. When you got a Miles Sanders, and when you had a healthy Jordan Howard, and Boston Scott was kind of your Swiss Army knife, and bringing in Kenny Gainwell as a rookie who's looking to explode into year two, that he's looking to provide a lot of competition to Miles Sanders, who right now is on the bubble for not getting an extension in this team. So we already know what Sirianni did, and what he did and what he didn't do. And now going into this year, the Eagles have painted a lot of obvious looks that were written on the wall. Receiver, who they were looking at in free agency, and bringing in Hassan Reddick, Kaiser White for the linebackers position, but still, when you look at the draft and the top 30 visits that they used, all of those skill positions that we have been discussing that they still need to upgrade, they're pretty much identical to what we've been talking about all this time. The last top 30 visit they used on was Christian Harris, one of the better linebacker prospects in the draft right now. They used one on him. They used one on Sauce Gardner, Kayvon Thibodeau, a lot of the top 10 selections. Jamison Williams, Chris Olave, we can go on and on. Like, there's a lot involved in day one and day two, but now it's sitting back and we're over here biting our fingernails, hoping that how he's going to make the right decisions. And now we're at the point, because a lot of this is, based on the Eagles, obviously, with us being Eagles content creators. Now we have to try and separate expectation from a fan's standpoint, and the reality. The reality is that the Eagles have not drafted a safety as early as the second round, I think, in 2 decades. They have not invested a first-round pick in a linebacker for almost 4 decades. Again, we're in a position where those skill positions have been so terribly neglected. Now, granted, they did upgrade those positions to a degree. Kaiser White looks very promising. He's only 26 years old. They had a strong eye for him in his draft class, and they were finally able to grab him, much to what was said earlier. I think in I forget who the player was that was brought up, but and that also put me in a stance of, in terms of competition, I'm wondering if we already have enough of that on the Eagles with Gardner Minshew as the backup. For as much as we know, when he had to come in for that Jets game, the competitive fire that he had coming out of there with a win, and granted it was the Jets, but he still won that game. And, expressing to Sirianni how many times that, I'm looking to be the starter, and how much consideration are you putting into me? So I guess that's the only element that could essentially remove the possibility of Matt Corral being a Eagle if they already have enough of a competitive value in Gardner Minshew as the backup. But nonetheless, when we get back to trying to separate expectation versus reality, there's a lot of players that us Eagles fans are really focused in on for this football team that could make a huge difference. So as we've been talking about, with us having 2 first-round picks, and granted, right now we can't make any predictions on what they're going to do because there seems to be a lot of smoke screens. We're not going to say, well, I think they're going to trade up to 7, or I think they're going to trade up to 12, since they've also been in talks with the Minnesota Vikings for number 12. They've been in talks with the Jets for number 10. At times they were trying to, combat the Giants with that number 7, in talking, I think, with the Carolina Panthers for number 6. The Eagles are not strangers to doing those kinds of trades, but if we just focus on 15 and 18, knowing that there's still some pretty incredible value at that spot, if you had to choose between both sides of the ball, do you think they're going to double dip on one side, like go full offense, full defense, or like if you're going to separate expectation and reality, where are you going, and where do you think the Eagles are going to go with the first 2 with our first 2 picks?
Well, with double dipping, that was something I've always wanted to do with Devontae Wyatt and Trayvon Walker before his before his combine blew him up to possibly the first pick of the draft. That was my intent and my hope. But now I don't think they're in a position to do that because of the Reddick deal. They have a defensive player that that could take some pressure off in the first round. So I think they'll focus on defense and possibly a wide receiver. I don't think they're going to double dip on defense. My hope is that they go with either defensive end or lineman with the first pick, because you have to think about it. Well, honestly, to be honest, it might have to be a wide receiver, because the way this draft is looking, receivers are going to be scarce. A lot of teams are going to jump up early in just to get them. Packers, as we discussed, in backstage, there's teams out there that are very desperate for receivers. So there might be a run early on at receiver. So I think with the 15 pick, that possibly could be a receiver. If not, I think, like I said before, a lineman or a defensive end. But I think receiver is going to have to be a first-round pick for them. I think that's what we're going to have to focus on. They're going to have to help out Devontae Smith. Chris Olave is my hope at receiver. I think he's a great talent. Defensive end, we all know there's talk about going up in the draft, top 5. I think, if I'm not mistaken, possibly they may be discussing it with Houston, the 3 pick. And the talk is, I think what is his name? Jonathan Rose out of CBS Sports just reported that they're possibly going up for Kyle Hamilton. So if that's the move to make, that changes everything. We're not going to have that second pick. So, our first round is already taken care of. Then in the second round, I would say if that were to happen, if we were to get a Kyle Hamilton to jump up with our second round pick, then I would say we would probably double dip in defense and try to get an edge or a lineman or possibly even a safety. I think that's the way it would, or excuse me, not a safety, a cornerback. Because, that's another team, that's another position where it's scarce. There aren't that many good quarterbacks in this draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if they were to make a move for a guy like Kyle Hamilton or whoever else, if they have to move into the top 10 and sacrifice that second rounder, that's going to say a lot in their intentions and confidence to understand that there would eventually be a massive gap if they made that kind of move, because you're going to give up 51. You're probably going to have to give up either 15 or 18 to make that kind of a jump. And where does that leave you? You're waiting all the way until 83, unless you decide to package some of your day threes and maybe move up back into day two and have an extra one there. So you're gonna have to go all in and feel confident in that gamble if it's going to be the safety position, to which we know not looking very good right now. If we're going to be totally honest, yes, they do have quite a bit of promise in Marcus Epps, and they feel that he's going to be a more competent safety going forward into Jonathan Gannon's defense that he does have familiarity with. Anthony Harris, it's the same story, but he's more of a serviceman at that position. Kayvon Wallace has been pretty disappointing up to this point, that he's been singled out to just special teams, and then it's the same thing for the rest of the secondary. You look at the cornerbacks, and that's where, as much as I don't want to believe it, I don't know if they're going to be in a position of putting as much value into safety as they would in corner, or vice versa if we're talking about Kyle Hamilton. Because at one point you heard Sirianni talk about that he's excited in guys like Tay Gowan and Kerry Vincent and Zach McPherson. Well, are any of these guys number one at this point in time, to where you absolutely need at least two outside corners that are a little bit better off right now than those three, when you have your Pro Bowler in Slay, who's alone at the outside at the very moment? So it's just it's not a very good setup right now, when you know that those key positions are still in, well, dire need at this point in time. And we can only hope that the Eagles make the right decision, especially day one and early into day two, because we're all pretty confident in how Howie has done day three picks. I mean, he hits pretty well on the later ones, but it's always early in the game where it's like, that was kind of questionable. And, well, a lot of us weren't fans of the Landon Dickerson selection until he completely made us turn like a 180. Like, wait a minute, he's pretty darn good. Like, all that fear of his injuries coming out, and was he going to be redshirted? Where is he going to end up on this deep offensive line that we have right now? And, well, we didn't predict the Brandon Brooks injury. We didn't predict Lane Johnson missing some time with that ankle irritation, and him having the what you call the mental health concerns at some point in time. You can't predict that. Andre Dillard, no versatility. So it panned out at the end of the day for Landon to make quite an impact, and him and Jordan Mailata together have been a force to be reckoned with. And please don't break that up in the future. That's all we ask, for how darn good it's been. And thank God for Jason Kelce returning. I think that's been one of the massive what's the word I'm looking for? I think that's been one of the more massive effects that have kind of altered their outlook on this class, even though Tyler Linderbaum is still an attractive selection for them, being that Howie has always been that guy to build from the trenches out. So I guess we're at the point in the show here where we kind of sum it up across all three teams. You know, the Texans and Jaguars, we've got quite a in-depth analysis between those two. So, you know, good job by Coach and ECG over here. And, well, Vic, we got some quick work to do in this, and we gotta pick two positions here at 15 and 18 if the Eagles don't manage to do a trade up. And for me, I've been on the double dip train like you were for quite some time, but it just, at this point, it doesn't feel realistic to me anymore. When you're like I said when we were talking about the Jags ECG, the whole goal is to improve as many positions as you possibly can. And while the Eagles and Jags are in a position where they have 2 first-round picks, they can do quite a bit of damage and, you know, that kind of improvement offensively and defensively. It makes more sense for the Eagles to pay attention to both sides of the football instead of just one, understanding that, well, depth still isn't very good at some of those key positions. Linebacker still a question. Edge rusher doesn't have depth. Defensive tackle. It's all across the board. So, what was that, ECG?
I was saying, let me throw this in there too, and I think a lot of people get this misconstrued about, you know, drafts in general. You draft for the future. You do free agency for right now. And I think what a lot of people are wishing, especially, you know, some casual watchers of football, they think that the draft is going to be their immediate, you know, oh, well, we didn't do well in free agency or we didn't trade correctly. Let this next guy like automatically be really good right away. And it's like, this is not. You draft for the future every single time, even with your first round pick. You hope that guy, and you know, the next year, the year after is your franchise guy. You trade and do free agency to win right now. A lot of people hate on the Rams and they have no draft picks, but shoot, what have you done for me lately? Won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
What more can you say at that point? But yeah, the other misconception that I thought about earlier today was when you talk about these prospects and saying, well, you know, I think this guy is better than this guy. Well, for their respective collegiate teams, to a degree, you can say that, and on paper with their tangibles and intangibles, you can also say that. But it's also predicated on when you talk about the team that they've played for, the conference that it was in, the type of competition that they were against. Well, when you take that to the NFL level, that's where it changes a bit, because it all depends on the team that they get drafted to and how they are going to elevate their game at the next level. So, I mean, but again, that's a part of the coaching staff, that's a part of the scouting department, and that's just a part of them making the right decision on who's going to be the best fit for their football team. So when you say when you say this player is better than this player right now, well, a lot of that is dependent on which team is going to select them and which team is going to get the most out of said player. And I think that's what a lot of people have a hard time really grasping the concept of.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess this managed to go the length of a stream, and I should have had that feeling in the back of my mind when there's 4 of us here that like to engage in a sophisticatedly extensive conversation when we're talking about our favorite football teams and football in general. So, fellas, I think we have produced quite a good bit of entertainment here for people to get a nice preview on going forward, especially for 3 different football teams. So I appreciate the 3 of you taking, about an hour of your time to make a video presentation with me. And, we got the draft to look forward to tomorrow. I know we're all going to be streaming on our respective channels or grouping up with others, but of course we're going to have to get back together again and assess what the Eagles have done day 1 through day 3. Same thing for the Jaguars, same thing for the Houston Texans. and we'll see if our teams are better, if they got better or if they got worse in due time. So with that, we are going to sign off here. And before we do, I can't close it out without you guys letting the people know where you can be found. And well, that'll conclude this presentation. So ECG, you are new to my channel, but I have been somewhat familiar with what you have been doing for the East Coast Gridiron podcast. But for those that don't know that, follow me but don't follow you, let them know where you can be found as a film watching extraordinaire.
So, I mean, we could be found pretty much everywhere. I would say probably Instagram is not our our most up to date, but we try to post pretty often on everything. I think what we've done is we've kind of taken a swing more on Twitter now than anything else. But yeah, I'm sure if you type in East Coast Gridiron, you're not gonna miss the logo, and you'll know exactly that it's us. Me and my Don, me and my man Don are we try to rock it out every week. Of course, I'm the one that talks the most, but he sits back in the cut and gives you some. We call him the stats guru. So if you like stats and the actual facts about things, my man does extensive research on all of that. So we hope that our show is educational for a lot of people. Like I told, and like these guys know, I will not sugarcoat. I will always challenge you on what you know, and I'm a sponge too. I love to learn what the things that I don't know. I'll never be the one that raises my hand up and say, hey, I know everything. But I think what you guys have been accustomed to is that, I know a lot about, a lot of football. So, but that's where you can find us. If you like that type of stuff, if you like unbiased opinions, I'm a Jaguars fan, a Florida State fan all day, but when they're trash, they're trash. And a 9-win season for me with Jacksonville is going to be the Super Bowl for me as well. So, but yeah, with that being said, Dante from East Coast Gridiron, Lindy, appreciate you having me on, man. It's always good to network and get with like-minded individuals. It's very refreshing.
I I appreciate that, and likewise. I mean, I feel more great. I feel more grateful to know that there's people willing to just to want to share their viewpoints, share their knowledge, and that's just that's just pretty much how it goes at the end of the day, man. We everyday people off of YouTube, but when we get on here, it's just a whether you take it as a career, a job, or a hobby, when it's something that you love to do, it shows in your work. So, yeah, man, much appreciated for you even being on here. Coach Dante, good to have you on the channel once again. It's been a hell of a long time, and
Yeah.
while I wish I still covered the Dallas Mavericks because we had, I know you were doing play-by-plays with my Mavs over there, whether it's in the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs right now or when they were facing the Houston Rockets, and we needed to get basketball talk in at some
Yep.
point. I
Let's
know,
do it.
unfortunately, it didn't happen, but grabbed you on here for some football with the Houston Texans and Eagles, and I think everybody pretty much knows where to find you at this point.
Yep.
What is the mother effing deal in Coach Dante? But let everybody know again, man.
Well, you can find me at Coach Dante. You can find me at Coach Dante. Instagram, Coach Dante 31. Twitter, Coach Dante 31. Know what ECG talking about? Florida State will suck, but don't worry about it. Texas was just that bad as well. Lose when you lose to a team like the Kansas Jayhawks, someone that we haven't lost to in a decade. Yeah, that kind of sums up the season. So we sucked as well. We sucked even worse. Probably losing to Kansas was just so embarrassing, just so embarrassing. But again, we can't wait to see what the Texans gonna do tomorrow. All the teams, man, can't wait to see what we're gonna have coming up. So, man, appreciate you for having me on, man. Anytime, man. We definitely do gotta get into some NBA talk though, man. But shout out to ECG, shout out to Vic, man. Like I say, I'm one text away, man. If y'all need me, I'm one text away.
And last but not least, the fellow Eagles fan on the panel. Well, I can't. Well, I keep I keep forgetting about Coach because he's so focused on Houston. But he came over. He came over to the to Bleeding Green. But part of the East meets West at the bottom. Repping that group of guys. Vic 3 has put on. He has put on quite a showing ever since he came onto YouTube, and I know he was. I know you were in the background for quite some time, but you had a lot of educated, and he had a lot of educated opinions from what I remember before you created a channel, and it's always good to have fresh faces and watch them evolve and it's good that you created a channel, Vic. So we gotta get you up there, continue to get you up there in popularity, so let the crowd know where you could be found as well.
I just want to shout my man out. I always do every show. This dude is one of the best question askers out there on YouTube, like especially if you need like somebody just to do a straight interview. Like, dude, I'm telling you, that's gonna be your strength. Like, if you can get some high profile people on the show, you'll be. This dude's channel take off faster than all of ours. He's that good, But that's just be hyping up a Vic. I'm a big fan of all you guys, but that's definitely your strong suit that I see for your future, man, for sure.
Listen, I appreciate the kind words from everyone, man. Like I always say, like I'm always here to support good content, whether it's Eagles or not. When I started the Big Ticket, that was a show that was between Jerry and Gio. They asked me to come on, and when I took that over, I wanted to take it over to see the opponent's standpoint, see like their thought on how they see our teams, is that we can get a broader look at other teams, like their other teams within the NFC East specifically. That's the way I wanted to see it, and it grew up to what it is now. And, like, I appreciate you always asking questions, but, like, when I'm asking the questions, those are things that, like, I'm generally interested in. Like, I really want to know, like, those thoughts. And, when I'm asking those questions, like, when I had you with the Jaguars, I know you were just caught off guard because you didn't think that I was going to ask so many Jaguar questions. But those are really things I wanted to know, especially with what are we doing with that first pick? Because I think that's what everyone around, every NFL fan wants to know. What is Jacksonville doing? And when I had you on, that was my intent because right now, at one point the Eagles did have, the draft on lock. Now it's Jacksonville. It all depends on how that first puzzle piece falls. That first domino falls. And like we said earlier, if that's Kayvon Thibodeau, we just blew everything up. Everything that we thought is not what it's going to be. And we know the Eagles, like we said before, they keep that straight face. They say the right things. But that might be the time where, the draft shakes up enough. We might see moves that we won't like. So, there's a lot to remain to be seen. You can find me, Twitter. I'm your host, Vic3. You can find me tomorrow on Dante's channel. We would be doing, 7 o'clock, I believe.
You guys can join whenever you want to, but I'm going an hour before.
So 6 o'clock. There we go.
No, 7 o'clock. But today. But we'll be going live at 7. So whenever everybody can join in, you can. And invitation to any of you guys, if you guys just want to come by. Hey, send me the link. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, man. So I'll be there 7 o'clock with Dante. Then followed up with at 9 p.m. East meets West. We're gonna do the live draft. Hopefully by then that'll be the Eagles pick. We can have a live discussion, have people come on, discuss their feelings over the pick. And then on Friday, I hope to have all of you gentlemen on my show. Since I couldn't do it on Sunday because I was very sick, I'm going to move the Big Ticket over to this Friday for the second day of the draft. We can discuss the picks as they come in, have a live discussion. And then on third day, whoever's live, I'll be on.
Hey, you already know I'm one text message away, man. I'm one message away. I definitely
exactly. Anytime anyone needs assistance or trying to go live and they need someone, I'm here.
All right.
Well, I'll tell you what, for fans across the board, Eagles, Jaguars, Houston Texans, you guys are going to have no shortage of entertainment coming tomorrow. Come tomorrow with the four of us being involved in separate draft coverage streams. As for me, I'm going to be having another portion of East Meets West, aka Eagles, and I have been talking about this for quite some time since the first draft coverage that I did on my channel, and this was before AK even had a channel, but he was really good in his analysis and his opinions, and I remember that's that was a lot of the influence and what pushed him into making his channel. So I'm very excited and privileged to have him on with me again, just to keep that going. And Philly Jim will be joining me as well. So the three of us are going to be going over the draft. So everybody, you guys have a wide spectrum of shows and channels that you can go to for the best that we'll try in draft coverage come tomorrow for the 2022 NFL draft. And before I say draft another 5 times, I think it's about time to close out this video presentation. Gentlemen, I thank you all once again for making this quite a plethora of information and sophistication to the best of our knowledge. And with that, Duval, I'm not sure about the Houston. I'm not sure about the Texans, but Coach Dante can help me out on that. Fly Eagles, fly, bleed green. You already know the deal. Close out your Texans, Coach Dante, and that'll be it.
Hey man, like I say, I always will be a Texan fan, no matter how much they lose games, man. Like I say, man, you can't never like Rudy Tonovich. Tom Janovich always said the one of the greatest Rockets coaches of all time. Never underestimate the heart of a champion. So that's what I'm gonna close out with right there. We've been down before, but we will be picking it right back up sooner or later.
Much like across the NFL with teams in the same position, man, hell of a show, guys, hell of a show. Thank you once more. And for myself, Lindy, ECG over here, Coach Dante, and Vic, we thank you for sticking to the end of this presentation. Fly Eagles fly, bleed green. Go Mavs, MFFLs. Let's get rid of the Utah Jazz. Take care of yourselves. Take care of yourselves, everybody. Have a good night. Keep that excitement for tomorrow in the draft, and we will see you next time. Take care, everyone.